Maybe I'll start responding by quoting Mahatma Gandhi. And he's famously said, there is enough in this world for every man's need, but not enough for every man's greed. So I think greed is what is affecting the world today. So how much is enough for me as an individual to live a healthy life? About 82% of the wealth generated in the last 1 year went to the top 1%. And people at the bottom, which is 50% of the humanity, or 3.6 billion people, got nothing last year in terms of wealth, zero. So just imagine, these are the very hard-working people that you will find in the streets of Kuala Lumpur or anywhere, including the cab driver who brought me here and the ones who are serving as delicious meals or coffee and working in this hotel. They get nothing after a hard year's labor, and that's unacceptable. In terms of what the governments or countries can do, I think the starting point is how resources are shared. So fair and equitable distribution is very important when it comes to actually addressing inequality crisis. So who is paying what in terms of revenue, in terms of taxes? So you will find that I talked about multinational companies and super rich not paying their fair share of taxes. If they start paying their fair share of taxes, then we will have more revenue to invest, more money to invest in inequality reduction, which is spending on public education, spending on quality healthcare for everyone. And that's what would lift people out of poverty and would also end this inequality cycle. The governments are not doing enough. And the free market economy that has been promoted over the last 25, 30 years has always argued for less state intervention and more free market. The market should regulate itself. The market knows what's the best. And 30 years later, we are in a situation where we are witnessing unprecedented levels of inequality. And for example, Asia used to be the poster child for equitable growth during the 60s and 70s. And then that trend has reversed now. Asia is fast becoming one of the most unequal regions in the world. And that's because, I'm talking about 60s and 70s, and the free market economic model started actually stepping into Asia only around that time, in late 70s and 80s. The problem is actually the current economic model. And without questioning and challenging that, we won't be able to move forward. You and I play a game of chess. Should we be left to decide who wins, or should we need a referee? So we do need someone to regulate the system, and the regulator's role is very important. We need to hold governments, businesses accountable. And that's the role that each one of us have, to raise your dissent, to raise your displeasure. Governments are cracking down on dissent. Governments are cracking down on people who have difference of opinion. Governments are cracking down on people and groups that are challenging. So there is this space for people to hold governments accountable is shrinking. The space available to people to raise their voice against injustice is shrinking. We need to protect that. If we don't protect that, then the governments will become businesses and we become consumers. And that's not what we want. We want a society, a country where government is for and by the people and actually taking care of the needs and aspirations of all the citizens in the country.